Imagine you're an American historian in a stunning Ottoman palace. Your research trip takes a dark turn when you find a strange velvet box. Inside, a cracked silver mask and a chilling note. "Welcome back, Sultana." Suddenly, a forbidden wing of the palace creaks open, revealing a 500-year-old portrait of a queen who looks exactly like you. An old guard whispers of Sultana Naira, a powerful ruler executed for treason, who swore she would return. Every night, a new mask appears on your pillow, engraved with messages designed to shatter your mind. A hooded figure stalks the rooftops, and a U.S. agent arrives to help. Deep beneath the palace, you uncover a secret court and a prophecy. The Sultana will return in foreign blood. Now, you must choose. Accept this new identity forced upon you, or fight to uncover the truth and reclaim your own life. What would you do? Subscribe for more stories that blur the line between history and nightmare. Imagine this. You're an American historian, Leila Rami, and you've just landed the gig of a lifetime. The Ottoman Heritage Council has invited you to Istanbul, putting you up in a restored ancient palace to conduct your research. It's a dream come true, right? A chance to walk the same halls as sultans and their courts, to breathe in the history you've only ever read about in books. The flight is long, but the exhaustion melts away the moment the plane descends over the Bosphorus. The sprawling city, a jewel box of minarets and modern skyscrapers, welcomes you. A car whisks you away from the bustling airport, through winding streets that hum with a language you don't yet speak. And finally, through the imposing gates of your new home. The palace isn't just a building. It's a living, breathing testament to a bygone era. Marble floors gleam under ornate chandeliers. Intricate tilework tells stories in silent, colorful patterns. And the air is thick with the scent of old wood, rosewater, and the sea. You're shown to your quarters, a suite that was likely once reserved for a favored member of the court. The furniture is antique but lovingly restored. A grand four-poster bed draped in crimson silk dominates the room. You unpack, feeling a thrill of anticipation mixed with a healthy dose of jet lag. The council has been incredibly generous. This is more than you could have ever hoped for. As dusk settles over Istanbul, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, you decide to turn in early. The city's call to prayer echoes softly, a hauntingly beautiful melody that seems to seep into the very stones of the palace. You pull back the heavy duvet on the bed, ready to sink into a deep sleep, but your hand brushes against something unexpected. A box. A small square box covered in deep blue velvet, sitting right in the center of your pillow. Your heart gives a little jump. It wasn't there before. You're sure of it? Maybe it's a welcome gift from the council. Your fingers tremble slightly as you lift the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, is a mask. A silver mask intricately crafted with delicate filigree, but marred by a thin, jagged crack running from the eye to the cheek. It's beautiful, but unsettling. Beneath it, there's a small folded piece of parchment. The paper is old, the edges softened with time. You carefully unfold it. The ink is a deep, rich brown, the script elegant and looping. 4 words are written on it, 4 words that make the hair on your arms stand on end. "Welcome back, Sultana." A cold dread washes over you, far colder than the evening air drifting through the open window. Sultana, you're Leila Rami, from Chicago. You've never set foot in Turkey before today. This has to be a mistake. A bizarre, elaborate prank, perhaps. You check the door, it's locked from the inside. The windows lead to a sheer drop into the palace gardens. No one could have gotten in. Yet, the box is here. The mask is real. The note feels ancient in your hand. But the most chilling part isn't the mysterious gift. It's the feeling that washes over you as you stare at the words. A strange, unsettling flicker of awe recognition. As if some long-dormant part of your soul is stirring, awakened by this impossible message. You came to Istanbul to study history, but you're starting to realize you haven't just stepped into a palace. You've stepped into a mystery. Someone in this ancient city believes you are the reincarnation of a long-lost sultana. And as you stand there, alone in the vast, silent room, you have to wonder, what if they're right? The history you came to uncover might not be in the archives. It might be locked inside you. Thank you for watching, and if you're intrigued by Leila's story, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this incredible mystery. The palace renovation team was very clear. Never, under any circumstances, are you to open the door to the East Wing. It's been sealed for a reason, and it's best for everyone if it stays that way. Their faces were grim, their voices low, as if speaking of a curse. Leila, being a professional, nodded in agreement. She was here to restore the palace's beauty, not to pry into its secrets. But the warning hung in the air, heavy and strange. Why seal off an entire wing? What could possibly be so terrible that it needed to be locked away from the world? That very night, the palace seemed to breathe around her. The old wood groaned, the wind howled like a mourning spirit. Leila tried to dismiss it as the quirks of an ancient building, but a deep-seated unease settled in her bones. As she lay in her temporary quarters, a sound cut through the night symphony of creaks and whispers. It was a low, drawn-out screech, like rusty hinges giving way after centuries of silence. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The sound was coming from the direction of the East Wing. Against her better judgment, she grabbed a flashlight and crept out of her room. The hallway was a tunnel of shadows, the moonlight barely piercing the tall, arched windows. As she got closer, she saw it. The massive, iron-strapped door to the East Wing, the one she was explicitly forbidden to touch, was ajar. A sliver of impenetrable darkness beckoned from within. The rational part of her brain screamed to turn back, to run, to pretend she saw nothing. But a stronger, more primal curiosity pulled her forward. It felt less like a choice and more like a compulsion, as if the house itself was reeling her in. She pushed the heavy door. It moved with an eerie silence now, swinging open to reveal a corridor choked with dust and draped in cobwebs that looked like funeral shrouds. The air was stale, thick with the scent of decay and something else. Something faintly floral, like long-dead roses. Her flashlight beam cut through the gloom, dancing over faded tapestries and furniture cloaked in white sheets resembling a ghostly congregation. The silence in here was different. It was a heavy, watchful silence. She moved deeper into the wing, her footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the floor. Room after room was filled with forgotten relics, a museum of suspended time. But one room at the very end of the hall felt different. The door was slightly ajar, and a strange, almost imperceptible light seemed to emanate from within. Pushing it open, she found herself in what must have been a royal bedchamber. It was opulent, even under the decay. A grand four-poster bed dominated the space, its curtains rotted away to skeletal threads. But it wasn't the bed that held her captive. It was the painting. Hanging on the wall opposite the door, in a massive, ornate golden frame, was a life-sized portrait. The flashlight beam trembled as she raised it to illuminate the canvas. The woman in the portrait was dressed in regal attire from a bygone era, her expression a haunting mix of sorrow and pride. But that wasn't what made Leila's breath catch in her throat. What made the blood drain from her face? It was the woman's face. It was her face. Not just a resemblance, not a mere likeness. It was her. The same dark, wavy hair, the same deep-set eyes that held a hint of melancholy, the same curve of her lips, the same small mole just above her left eyebrow. It was Leila, rendered in oil paint 500 years ago. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. Who was this woman? A queen from half a millennium ago who shared her face down to the last detail. The plaque at the bottom of the frame was tarnished, but she could just make out the inscription, Queen Alara, 1523. The palace's secrets were no longer just historical curiosities. They were personal. The forbidden wing wasn't just a sealed-off part of a building. It was a tomb holding a piece of her own identity. The warning from the renovation team echoed in her mind. No longer a simple instruction, but a dire omen. They weren't just protecting the palace. They were protecting her from what was inside. As she stood there, paralyzed, a faint whisper seemed to drift from the portrait itself. Her name? Leila. It wasn't the wind. It was a voice, ancient and intimate, calling to her from across the centuries. The eyes in the painting, once just pigment on a canvas, now seemed to hold a flicker of life, a desperate plea. Suddenly, the heavy chamber door slammed shut behind her, plunging the room into absolute darkness. Her flashlight clattered to the floor, its beam extinguishing. She was trapped. Trapped in a 500-year-old room with the ghost of her own face. The mystery of the East Wing had just begun, and she was no longer an observer. She was the main character in a story she never knew was hers. The doppelganger in the portrait wasn't just a coincidence. It was a key to what she didn't know. A forgotten history. A family curse, or something far more terrifying. The sealed door hadn't been meant to keep people out. 'Twas meant to keep Queen Alara in. And now, Leila was in there with her. The palace had chosen its next player, and the game was one of supernatural survival. As she fumbled in the dark, the whispers grew louder, weaving a tale of betrayal, lost love, and a desire for vengeance that had waited 500 years to find a new vessel. And it had just found one. This story is just getting started, and the line between the past and the present is about to shatter. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because you won't want to miss what happens when Leila comes face to face with her spectral twin. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next part. Leila, still reeling from the chaos at the bazaar, knew she needed answers, and fast. The whispers, the strange occurrences, they all pointed to something far bigger than a simple case of mistaken identity. Her search led her not to the grand libraries or the bustling city centers, but to the quiet, forgotten corners of the old city, where secrets were currency and history was a living, breathing thing. It was there, in a dimly lit tea house tucked away in a labyrinth of alleyways, that she found him. Kemal, a name whispered with a mixture of respect and fear. He was a retired palace guard, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, each one telling a story of a life lived in the shadow of the throne. His eyes, though old, were sharp, missing nothing. He had seen dynasties rise and fall, secrets buried and unearthed. He had agreed to meet her, a risky move for a man who valued his quiet retirement. As Leila approached his table, the scent of strong cardamom tea and old leather filled the air. Kemal didn't stand. He simply gestured to the empty chair opposite him, his gaze intense. "You are the girl from the bazaar," he said, his voice a low rumble, like stones grinding together. It wasn't a question. The one they are calling the ghost of the Sultana. Leila sat, her heart pounding a nervous rhythm against her ribs. She nodded, unable to find her voice for a moment. "I don't know why," she finally managed to say. "I don't understand any of this. I just wanted to stop." Kemal took a slow sip of his tea, his eyes never leaving hers. He seemed to be weighing her, judging her worthiness for the story he was about to tell. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the city. He finally set his cup down with a soft click. "Some stories are not meant for everyone," Kemal began, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, forcing Leila to lean in closer. "They are dangerous. They have a life of their own, and the story you have found yourself in, it is one of the most dangerous of all." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "There was once a queen," he continued, "a sultana more feared than she was loved. Her name was Naira." At the mention of the name, a shiver traced its way down Leila's spine. It was the same name the old woman had shrieked in the bazaar. "Sultana Naira was not like the others," Kemal explained. She was brilliant, ambitious, and utterly ruthless. She held the Sultan and the entire court in the palm of her hand. Some said she was a sorceress, that she dealt in dark magics to maintain her power. Others said she was simply a woman who knew what she wanted and was not afraid to take it, no matter the cost. She ruled from the shadows for years, Kamal said, his gaze distant, as if seeing ghosts from a bygone era. Her network of spies was legendary. Nothing happened within the palace walls or even in the city without her knowledge. But power like that breeds enemies. Powerful enemies. The viziers, the generals, even members of the royal family. They grew to resent her influence, to fear her ambition. They saw her as a threat to the stability of the empire, a threat to the dynasty itself. Leila listened, captivated. This wasn't the history she had learned in books. This was raw, secret, and terrifyingly real. So they conspired against her, Kemal said, his voice laced with a hint of old sorrow. They gathered false evidence, bribed witnesses, and twisted her every action into an act of betrayal. They accused her of treason, of plotting to overthrow the Sultan and seize the throne for herself. The trial was a sham. Kemal spat, a flicker of ancient anger in his eyes. A piece of theater designed to legitimize a foregone conclusion. Sultana Naira was found guilty. The sentence was death. He paused, taking another slow sip of tea. The silence in the small tea house felt profound. "I was there," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I was a young guard on duty that day. I saw it all." Leila's breath caught in her throat. She was no longer just hearing a story. She was hearing a testimony. They brought her to the courtyard. She walked with her head held high, defiant to the very end. She showed no fear, only a cold, burning rage. As the executioner approached, she looked out at the assembled court, at the men who had condemned her, at the royal family she had served and, perhaps, once loved. Kemal's eyes locked onto Leila's, and for a second she felt the chilling power of the moment he was describing. And then she spoke, he said, his voice trembling slightly with the memory. She cursed them. She cursed the entire dynasty. With her final breath, she screamed words that would echo through the halls of that palace for generations. He leaned in even closer, his voice a rasp. She said, "You may kill me now, but you will not be rid of me. My face will haunt your dreams. My name will be a poison on your lips. This throne you seek to protect will be your damnation, and one day you will see me again." The final words hung in the air between them, cold and sharp. "You will see me again." The same words the whispers had hissed in her ears. A cold dread washed over Leila. The pieces were starting to connect, forming a picture that was more terrifying than she could have imagined. After her execution, Kamal continued, pulling back slightly. It was as if she never existed. They erased her from the records, destroyed her portraits, and forbade anyone from speaking her name. They wanted to wipe her from history. But a curse like that, it doesn't just disappear. He looked at Leila, a new, unnerving intensity in his eyes. For generations, there have been whispers, sightings, strange illnesses plaguing the royal line. They call it the curse of Naira. And now you appear. A girl from a forgotten village, with a face that is the spitting image of a long-dead, cursed queen. Leila's mind was racing, a whirlwind of fear and confusion. "So what does this mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. Am I related to her? Am I her descendant?" Kamal shook his head slowly. "That is one possibility, that the blood of the wronged sultana runs through your veins, a living embodiment of her curse, returned to haunt the dynasty that destroyed her." He let that sink in before offering another, even more chilling possibility. "Or," he said, his voice dropping to a low, ominous tone, "it means something else entirely. It means someone, right now, in this city, is using you. Someone knows the story of Sultana Naira. Someone knows of her curse. And they are staging all of this, using your face as their weapon. The implication was staggering. Was she just a pawn in a much larger game? A game of power and revenge being played out in the highest echelons of the empire. Who? Leila breathed. Who would do this? Kemal gave a weary shrug. In this city, the list of those who would benefit from destabilizing the throne is endless. A rival noble house, a disenfranchised prince, a foreign power. Or perhaps, he added, his eyes glinting, it is someone who believes they are carrying out the Sultana's will. A true believer in her curse, seeking to fulfill her final prophecy. He leaned back in his chair, his story told. The burden now rested on Leila's shoulders. You are in grave danger, girl, he said, his tone final. You are either a ghost of the past or a puppet of the present. And I do not know which is worse. Leila left the tea house with Kemal's words echoing in her mind. The city, once a place of hopeful new beginnings, now felt like a cage closing in around her. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every friendly face could be a mask. Was she the reincarnation of a vengeful queen, destined to fulfill a century-old curse? Or was she a carefully chosen pawn, her uncanny resemblance being exploited by a hidden mastermind to sow chaos and fear? The questions swirled, each more terrifying than the last. She was no longer just a girl trying to clear her name. She was at the center of a historical conspiracy, a political power play that threatened to tear the empire apart. And she knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that finding the truth was no longer just about her own survival. It was about uncovering a secret that the palace had killed to bury, secret that was now, quite literally, staring back at her from every reflection. Her journey had taken a dark and dangerous turn, and the path forward was shrouded in shadows and lies. Thank you for watching. If you're intrigued by Leila's quest for the truth, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't want to miss the next chapter in this thrilling saga. See you next time. And trust me, things are about to get seriously intense. The scene opens the next morning. Leila slowly wakes up, the morning sun filtering through her window. For a moment, everything seems normal, peaceful even. You can almost feel her sense of relief after the chaos of the previous days. But that feeling is shattered in an instant. As she turns her head on the pillow, her eyes land on something that makes her blood run cold. It's another mask. But this isn't just any mask. It's not a replica of the ones from the ball or the ones she found before. This one is different. It's intricately carved, more personal. And there, etched into the material, are her own initials, L.R. Leila Rousseau. The camera would zoom in on this detail, making our own hearts pound. This changes everything. This isn't a random act anymore. It's targeted, it's personal. Someone isn't just playing a game. They are sending a direct, chilling message to her. And this brings us to the question that's probably screaming in your mind right now. The same one that's screaming in Leila S., who is getting into her room at night. This is a classic, brilliant psychological thriller element. Her home, her bedroom, her most private and supposedly secure space has been violated. The very place she should feel safest is now the epicenter of her fear. This introduces a whole new level of paranoia for both Leila and for us as the audience. We start questioning everything. Is it someone she knows? Someone with a key? Could it be a staff member at her apartment building? Or is it someone from the party? Someone who managed to follow her home? Someone who has been stalking her this entire time? The possibilities are endless, and each one is more terrifying than the last. Let's break down the implications here. The initials L.R. on the mask. This isn't a threat that's just about the mask itself. It's a statement. It says, "I know who you are, Leila Rousseau. I know where you live. I can get to you whenever I want." The intimacy of the act, leaving it on her pillow right next to where she slept, is a profound violation. The stalker is demonstrating their power, their control. They are showing her that she is completely vulnerable. This is a masterful way to build suspense. It's not about a jump scare. It's about a slow, creeping dread that seeps into your bones. The unknown figure who moves in the shadows, whose motives are a complete mystery. Why are they doing this? What do they want from her? Is this a warning? A threat? Or is it part of some twisted, elaborate game? We, the viewers, are now put in the position of detectives, trying to piece together the clues alongside Leila. We'll start reevaluating every character we've met so far. What about that charming person she met at the gallery? Or the quiet neighbor she barely speaks to? Suddenly, everyone is a suspect. The story forces us to look at every interaction through a lens of suspicion. This is what great psychological thrillers do. They make you doubt reality and question everyone's intentions. Think about the psychological toll this takes on Leila. She can't sleep. She can't relax. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corner of her eye will make her jump. Her home has transformed from a sanctuary into a prison of her own fear. She is isolated in her terror because who would even believe her? She goes to the police. What does she say? "Someone is leaving masks on my pillow." It sounds almost unbelievable, like a prank. And that's the genius of the antagonist's method. It's subtle, personal, and designed to make her feel crazy, to isolate her even further. The introduction of this personalized mask is a major turning point in the narrative. The stakes have just been raised exponentially. Before, the mask was a symbol of a mystery she was investigating. Now, the mystery is investigating her. She is no longer the hunter, she is the hunted. And the predator is closing in, becoming bolder and more direct with each move. Let's consider who this person could be. There are a few archetypes we often see in these kinds of stories. There's the obsessed admirer, someone who has developed an unhealthy fixation on Leila and sees these masks as twisted gifts. There's the vengeful figure, someone from her past whom she may have wronged, either knowingly or unknowingly, and this is their form of payback. Or, and this is a truly unsettling thought, it could be someone who is doing this for the sheer thrill of it, a puppet master who enjoys watching her unravel. This particular plot point, the invasion of the bedroom, taps into a very primal fear. We all have a deep-seated need to feel safe in our own homes. When that safety is compromised, it destabilizes our entire world. The story is no longer just about a mysterious organization or a secret society. It's about a direct, personal threat to our protagonist's life and sanity. The fact that this is happening in the morning is also significant. Morning usually symbolizes a new beginning, clarity, and safety from the terrors of the night. But here, the story subverts that expectation. The horror isn't just lurking in the darkness. It's waiting for her in the light of day. There is no escape. The threat is constant, a 24/7 presence in her life now. So what does Leila do next? Her reaction here will define her character. Does she crumble under the fear? Does she flee? Or does she fight back? Knowing Leila, she's not one to back down. This terrifying event might just be the catalyst that pushes her from being a curious investigator to a determined survivor who will stop at nothing to unmask her tormentor. She might start setting up her own traps, installing cameras, and turning her apartment into a fortress. The dynamic is shifting from her being a victim to her becoming a proactive force against this unseen enemy. This is where the story truly hooks us for the long haul. We are invested not just in solving the mystery of the masks, but in Leila's survival. We are rooting for her to overcome this intense psychological warfare. The question of who is entering her room at night will be the driving force of the next several parts of this story. It's a mystery that is both terrifying and utterly compelling. We have to know the answer. And that's our deep dive into the return of the mask and the horrifying new reality Leila is facing. This is a game changer, and I can't wait to see where the story takes us from here. What are your theories? Who do you think the mysterious intruder is? Drop your ideas in the comments below. I'd love to read them and discuss. Don't forget to like this video if you're as hooked as I am, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our breakdown of the next part. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And trust me, things are about to get even more intense. If you thought the story was wild before, you haven't seen anything yet. So, grab your popcorn, get comfortable, and let's get right into it. The scene opens with a heart-stopping piece of evidence. We're talking crystal clear CCTV footage, the kind that sends a shiver down your spine. On the screen, a mysterious hooded figure is seen moving with almost supernatural agility. They're not just lurking in the shadows, they are literally leaping across the ancient moonlit rooftops of the palace. It's like something out of an action movie, but this is terrifyingly real. The guards are baffled. The palace staff is in a panic, and everyone is asking the same questions. Who is this person? What are they after? And how on earth can someone move like that, defying gravity high above the palace grounds? This brazen act of intrusion signals a massive escalation. It's no longer just about whispers and old legends. There's a physical threat present within the palace walls, someone who can seemingly bypass all security measures. The local authorities are scrambling, but they're clearly out of their depth. The situation has become so serious that it calls for international expertise. And that's when he arrives. Enter Ethan Cole. He's a special security agent all the way from the United States, and he's not your average investigator. Think of him as a modern-day Sherlock Holmes, but with the tactical skills of a covert operative. He's sharp, observant, and he doesn't believe in ghosts or ancient curses. He believes in cold, hard facts. From the moment he steps onto the scene, you can feel the entire dynamic of the investigation shift. He carries an air of authority and a quiet confidence that immediately clashes with the palace's atmosphere of superstition and fear. Ethan's first move is to analyze the CCTV footage. He watches it over and over, his eyes missing nothing. While others see a phantom, he sees a person. A highly trained, highly skilled person. He points out the subtle details, the way the figure lands, the specific points they use for leverage. This isn't magic. It's technique. This intruder, whoever they are, has a mission. His primary focus, however, quickly becomes Leila. He sees her not as a potential reincarnated sultana, but as the central pawn in a very dangerous game. He arranges a private meeting with her, away from the prying eyes and ears of the court. The tension in that room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Leila is wary. Caught between the mystical world she's being pulled into and the stark reality this American agent represents. And then, Ethan delivers the line that changes everything. He looks her straight in the eye and says, "Someone wants you to believe you are the reincarnation of Sultana Naira." He lets that sink in for a moment before delivering the knockout punch. Once you believe that, they control you. It's a bombshell. This single warning reframes the entire narrative. Is the voice she's hearing, the memory she's experiencing, is it all a lie? A sophisticated psychological manipulation designed to make her a puppet for someone else's agenda. This is the moment the story brilliantly pivots. We are no longer just following a historical mystery about a long-lost sultana. The plot now splits into two thrilling tracks running side by side. On one hand, we have the historical deep dive. We're still piecing together the puzzle of Sultana Naira's life, her lost treasure, and the secrets she took to her grave. The flashbacks, the ancient texts, the cryptic clues, that's all still a huge part of the journey. We're uncovering a fascinating piece of history that has been buried for centuries. But now, layered on top of that is a modern-day, high-stakes investigation. With Ethan Cole leading the charge, it becomes a contemporary thriller. We have surveillance, forensic analysis, and psychological profiling. We're hunting a real flesh and blood adversary who is using the legend of Naira as their ultimate weapon. This fusion of genres is pure genius, and it's a formula that American audiences, in particular, absolutely love. It gives us the best of both worlds: the romantic, sweeping epic of the past and the fast-paced, intelligent suspense of the present. The central question is no longer just who was Sultana Naira. It's now who is trying to manipulate Leila and why. What is their endgame? Is it the treasure, political power, or something far more personal and sinister? Ethan and Leila form an uneasy alliance. She has the connection to the past, the visions, the instincts. He has the modern skills to navigate the web of deception being spun around her. She's the heart of the operation, he's the brains. The rooftop intruder isn't just a random thief. They are a clear message to Leila and to everyone in the palace. A message that says, we can get to you anytime, anywhere. The pressure on Leila is now immense. She's fighting a battle on two fronts. Internally, she's struggling with her own identity. Is she just Leila, or is a part of Naira truly inside her? Externally, she has to navigate a minefield of suspicion and danger, not knowing who to trust. Every friendly face could be a mask. Every piece of advice could be a trap. Ethan starts digging into the backgrounds of everyone in the palace. The loyal vizier, the jealous relatives, the servants who seem to know more than they let on, everyone is a suspect. He treats the palace not as a historical landmark, but as a crime scene. He's looking for motive, means, and opportunity. Who benefits the most if Leila fully embraces the identity of the reincarnated Sultana? Who has the resources and skills to hire or be the rooftop intruder? This new direction adds so many layers of suspense. Every conversation Leila has is now loaded with subtext. Is this person trying to help her, or are they testing her, pushing her further into the role they've created for her? The psychological warfare is just as thrilling as the physical threats. We as the audience are put in the same position as Leila, trying to decipher the truth from the lies. And that's where we'll leave it for today's breakdown. The arrival of Ethan Cole and his chilling warning has completely flipped the script. The game has changed. The stakes are higher than ever, and the lines between past and present have blurred into a thrilling, dangerous mystery. Who do you think is pulling the strings? What is their ultimate goal? Let me know your theories down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think is going on. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of our analysis. We've got so much more to uncover. Until next time, take care. It was a courtroom, frozen in time. A massive, circular chamber with stone benches arranged in tiers, all facing a single ornate chair on a raised dais. The air was thick, heavy with the ghosts of ancient judgments. Ethan's hand found mine, his grip tight. We walked towards the center, our footsteps echoing in the chilling silence. It felt like trespassing on sacred, forbidden ground. On the central dais, beside the throne-like chair, was a stone lectern. An old yellowed scroll lay open upon it, held down by a paperweight shaped like a coiled serpent. My heart hammered against my ribs as we drew closer. The script was elegant, ancient, and written in a dialect I barely recognized. But the words were clear enough. It was an official record, a transcript of a secret trial. And the name written at the top made my blood run cold. Naira, my ancestor, the last Sultana. I scanned the text, my eyes flying across the lines. Accusations of treason, of consorting with dark spirits, of betraying the Sultanate. It was all lies. a web of deceit spun to justify her downfall. They had condemned her in the shadows, far from the eyes of the people who loved her. They framed her, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. This whole thing. It was a coup, cloaked in legitimacy. Ethan looked grim, his jaw tight. He pointed to the bottom of the scroll, where a seal had been pressed into wax. It was the mark of the Grand Vizier's office, but with a subtle difference, scorpion etched into the center. The same symbol from the locket, the one that had started this whole terrifying journey. The Vizier's family, Ethan said, his voice a low growl. This conspiracy goes back generations. They didn't just want power, they wanted to erase your family from history. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. Tucked beneath the main scroll was another, smaller piece of parchment. It was frayed at the edges. The ink faded, as if it had been read and reread 1,000 times. This one wasn't a court record. It was a prophecy. My hand trembled as I held the lantern closer. Ethan read the words aloud, his voice barely audible in the vast chamber. When shadows lengthen and the scorpion's sting poisons the throne, the last daughter shall return. The Sultana will rise again, born not of desert sand, but of foreign blood, to reclaim her stolen crown. Foreign blood. The words echoed in the silent room, bouncing off the stone walls and burrowing deep into my soul. I wasn't born here. I was an outsider, an art historian from another world, pulled into this story by a twist of fate. Or was it fate at all? My gaze met Ethan's. The realization dawned on us at the same moment, a horrifying, electrifying truth. This wasn't just about clearing Naira's name. This was about me. I was the foreign-born woman. The prophecy. It was talking about me. Leila, Ethan breathed, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. This isn't a legend. This isn't a coincidence. He gestured around the secret court, at the scrolls, at the carefully preserved scene. Someone planned this. For years, maybe even centuries. They orchestrated Naira's fall, knowing this prophecy. They've been waiting for you. The weight of his words crushed me. I wasn't just a descendant. I was a pawn in a game that started long before I was born. Every step I'd taken, every clue I'd found. Had it been my choice, or was I just following a pre-written script? The thought was terrifying. My mind reeled. The attack at the market, the chase through the spice souk, the accidental discovery of the locket. Was it all a setup? Was someone pulling the strings, guiding me to this very room, to this very revelation? Who? I asked, my voice shaking. Who is doing this? Ethan shook his head, his expression dark. I don't know, but they're powerful, and they've been one step ahead of us this entire time. They wanted you to find this. They wanted you to know. He paused, his gaze intense. They want you to be the next Sultana. A cold dread washed over me. I wasn't a queen. I was a scholar. I wanted to uncover history, not become it. But the prophecy felt like a cage closing around me. The secret court wasn't just a remnant of the past. It was a stage set for a new act. And I was the unwilling lead. No, I said, shaking my head. No, I can't. This is insane. Ethan stepped closer, his hands gently taking my shoulders. Leila, look at me. Insane or not, it's real. Someone is manipulating events to put you on the throne. We need to find out who and why. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from the tunnel we'd come through. A scrape of stone on stone. They know we're here, Ethan whispered, pulling me behind the massive stone chair. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. We were trapped deep beneath the palace in a secret chamber with no other exit. A heavy silence descended, a silence more terrifying than any noise. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting to see what the pawn would do next. Holding my own lantern, which now felt impossibly heavy, I knew we had to make a choice. Stay hidden and wait for our fate, or face whoever was out there. Ethan drew the curved dagger from his belt, its blade glinting. He gave me a look that said, "I'm with you, no matter what." Taking a deep breath, I tried to quiet the frantic beating of my heart. I was no sultana, but I was Naira's descendant, and I wouldn't be taken down in the shadows, just like she was. The game was on, and whether I liked it or not, I was a player. The silence stretched on, and then, a new sound, the slow, deliberate creak of the heavy iron door beginning to swing open. We'd been documenting the decay, the dust, the slow erasure of history for weeks. We reached the end of the hall, where a grand portrait of the family's matriarch once hung. The painting was gone, but the space it left felt occupied. That's when we first saw her. At first, she was just a shimmer, a heat-haze distortion in the air. Then she solidified. A figure, tall and slender, standing motionless at the far end of the hall. Her form silhouetted against the unnaturally bright window. We froze, our breath catching in our throats. Was this what we had been searching for? The proof of the paranormal that had eluded so many who had dared to walk these halls before us. We zoomed in, our hands trembling slightly on the camera controls. As the image resolved, we saw the details. A long, dark dress that seemed to drink the light, and on her face, a mask. An ornate, ancient silver mask, intricately carved, its polished surface reflecting the spectral light in a way that made it seem alive. It was the very same mask we'd read about in the old family journals, the one said to have been buried with Lady Annalise after her alleged betrayal centuries ago. The stories claimed she'd sold family secrets to their rivals, leading to their downfall, and was executed in disgrace. She didn't move, just stood there, a silent sentinel in the dead of night. The silence stretched, becoming a physical presence, pressing in on us. We were paralyzed, caught between the instinct to run and the professional need to document this impossible event. Then, a sound. Not with our ears, but in our minds. A whisper, soft as silk, yet it cut through the silence like a blade. It was a woman's voice, filled with an ancient sorrow and a cold, burning anger. The words echoed in our consciousness, not our eardrums. I was not the traitor. The voice was resolute, filled with the weight of centuries of injustice. They lied. They silenced me to hide their own sins. A cold dread washed over us, colder than the chill in the air. This wasn't just a residual haunting. This was intelligent. This was a direct communication. The figure took a single, soundless step forward, the silver mask glinting. The eyes of the mask, though just empty silver slits, seemed to fixate on us, to look right through the camera lens and into our very souls. They thought my story was over. Another silent step. She was closer now. We could see the delicate, dark embroidery on her gown, the way her hands were clasped loosely at her waist. There was a strange elegance to her, a tragic grace that belied the horror of the situation. But a story is never truly over. The whisper continued, as long as someone is left to tell it. We wanted to ask questions, to speak, but our voices were stolen, our throats tight with fear. Who were they? What was the truth she spoke of? The historical accounts were clear, painting her as a villain, a footnote in the family's tragic decline. But standing here, in her presence, that official history felt like a fragile lie. Her sorrow was palpable, a tangible force in the room. You could feel the sting of her betrayal, not by her, but against her. She raised a hand, gesturing not at us, but at something beyond us, towards the sealed-off section of the manor where the family archives were rumored to be hidden. The proof is still here. The voice resonated in our minds, locked away with their guilt. They feared it then. They fear it now. She lowered her hand, and the intensity of her gaze seemed to double. It was as if she was weighing us, judging our worth, our courage. We were no longer just observers, documentarians of a ghost story. We were being drawn into it, becoming part of the narrative she was trying to rewrite. The line between the past and the present was dissolving right before our eyes. The air crackled, and the lights in the hallway flickered violently, plunging us into momentary darkness before blazing back to life. In that brief second of blackness, the feeling of absolute terror was overwhelming. We weren't in control. We were guests in her domain, and she was dictating the terms. When the light steadied, she was closer still. So close we could have reached out and touched the cold silver of her mask. The intricate patterns seemed to swirl, the face of a weeping woman etched into the metal. The final words she imparted were not a plea, but a command, a transference of a burden. Now, you will finish what I could not. The whisper faded, but the weight of her words settled upon us, a heavy, invisible mantle. She was passing her torch, her quest for vindication, to us. We were being tasked with unearthing a centuries-old conspiracy. As she spoke that final sentence, her form began to waver, just as it had appeared. The edges of her figure blurred, turning translucent. The solid form dissolved back into a shimmer, a mirage of sorrow and vengeance. And then, with a final, lingering glint from the silver mask, she was gone. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, the darkness complete, our own frantic breathing the only sound. The camera was still rolling, its small red light a lonely beacon in the black. We had the footage. We had the experience. But what did we really have? Was she a ghost, a tormented spirit bound to this place, seeking a final, desperate justice? Or was she something else entirely? A warning, a psychic projection left behind, an echo of a great injustice triggered by our presence. The moral ambiguity is what haunts us now, even more than the image of her masked face. But in doing so, are we honoring a wronged soul, or are we becoming pawns in a long-dead woman's revenge? We don't know who the real villains are anymore, her or the family that condemned her. The evidence is on this tape. The mission is clear. The question is, should we accept it? What would you do? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe as we try to answer that very question. Ethan and I exchanged a long, meaningful look. The whispers of the past, the weight of a stolen legacy, it all hung heavy in the air between us. But in his eyes, I didn't see a follower looking at his queen. I saw a partner, a friend, someone who believed in me, not in a legend. That was all the strength I needed. The time for secrets and shadows was over. I sent out a summons, a single, clear decree that echoed through the marble halls of the palace. The Heritage Council would convene at once. Every elder, every historian, every keeper of our sacred traditions, no one would be absent. The grand chamber was a cavern of hushed anticipation. The elders sat in their ornate chairs, their faces a mixture of confusion, suspicion, and just a few, glimmers of hope. I stood before them, not in the royal regalia they expected, but in my own simple attire. I wasn't playing a role anymore. In my hands, I held the cursed mask of Naira. Its obsidian surface seemed to drink the light from the room, its empty eyes promising power at a terrible price. I could feel its pull, a siren song of destiny fulfilled, of a throne just waiting to be claimed. But it wasn't my song. It was a lie, beautifully crafted and handed down through generations. I looked at each council member, meeting their gazes one by one. I saw Elder Maeve, her brow furrowed in deep thought. I saw Lord Kale, his expression unreadable, a stone fortress of political calculation. And I saw others, men and women who had dedicated their lives to a story that I now knew was a fabrication. Taking a deep breath, I let the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Then I spoke, my voice ringing with a clarity that surprised even myself. "Members of the Heritage Council," I began, my words sharp and precise. "For weeks you have watched me. You have tested me. You have whispered that I am the reincarnation of Sultana Naira, returned to claim her birthright." A murmur went through the crowd. I held up the mask, silencing them. "You believed this mask was the proof, the key to unlocking a glorious past. You were wrong." I let that sink in. The shock was palpable, a ripple of disbelief spreading through the chamber. "I am not Nira's reincarnation." The words felt like a release, a heavy chain shattering around my heart. I wasn't a ghost, a vessel for someone else's story. I was Leila, just Leila, and that was enough. "The prophecies were a lie," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "The trials were a manipulation. Someone, generations ago, twisted our history. They created this myth, this elaborate stage play, for reasons we do not yet understand. They wanted a puppet queen, a symbol they could control, not a true leader. They used the memory of a beloved sultana to weave a web of deceit, and we all willingly walked into it." I walked towards the grand ceremonial brazier in the center of the room, its eternal flame flickering, casting dancing shadows on the walls. "I will not be a part of this lie. I will not wear this mask and perpetuate a fraud that has poisoned the heart of our kingdom." Ethan stepped forward, standing just behind my shoulder, a silent, unshakable pillar of support. His presence was a quiet declaration to everyone in the room. "But I will do this," I declared, turning back to face the stunned council. "I will uncover who tried to rewrite our history, and I will discover why. I will find the truth, not for the sake of a crown, but for the sake of our people who deserve a future built on honesty, not on fairy tales and forgeries." With a final, decisive movement, I raised the obsidian mask high. The elders gasped, some even rising to their feet in protest. "No," a voice cried out, but it was too late. I thrust the mask into the heart of the eternal flame. It hissed as the fire licked its edges. For a moment it resisted, the ancient magic clinging to it. But then, with a sharp crack, it began to melt. The features of Naira distorted, contorted in the heat, before dissolving into a pool of black, bubbling tar. The curse was broken. The lie was consumed. A collective sigh of relief and horror went through the chamber. As the last of the mask turned to ash, a sudden, violent gust of wind howled through the long hallway leading to the chamber. It slammed open the doors, extinguishing half the torches and sending tapestries whipping against the stone walls. It wasn't a natural wind. It was a shriek, a cry from the past itself, and then we heard it. A loud, sharp crack that echoed like a gunshot. Everyone turned. Down the hall, in the Gallery of Monarchs, hung the grand, life-sized portrait of the true Sultana Naira. And now, a jagged fracture ran right across her painted face, splitting the canvas in two. It was as if the real Naira, trapped for so long behind the myth, was finally breaking free. The past had shattered. The real story was just beginning. And I, with Ethan by my side, would be the one to write it. Thank you so much for watching part 8 of our story. This is a huge turning point for Leila. What do you think the cracked portrait means? Who is behind the conspiracy? Let me know all your theories in the comments below. And if you're as excited as I am to see what happens next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss Part 9. Thanks for being on this journey with us.